Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie and this is Garden of Mirth. Today I'm going to take you around our 100-year-old farmhouse as I decorate for Christmas. Last year I took a wreath making class with my mom, so this year the very first thing I did was make our wreaths for the front doors. I harvested some greenery in our backyard as well as some holly berries from my aunt and uncle's property. I really like the way that these turned out, and I'll include a shot of them up on our doors as well. Before I get started decorating, I'm going to start a simmer pot on the stove, and it's really going to help get us in the holiday spirit. Simmer pots fill the whole house with the warm, cozy sense of Christmas time and make the perfect gift as well. I actually have a printable recipe and Christmas tags for your simmer pots for free on my blog. I will link those in the description box below. So if you would like a cheap, easy gift idea, go ahead and grab my free printable recipe and free Christmas tags. To make a fresh simmer pot, we're going to add oranges. I have some fresh that I'm going to cut up. It's kind of sour, they're not the best. So I'm going to go ahead and throw these in. You can also use dehydrated. And I'll show you, if you're gifting a simmer pot, this is your best option. So if you have, you can either buy these dehydrated online, or it's super simple to just do what I did. Cut thin slices and either put it in your oven, or if you have a dehydrator, you can dehydrate these, and that's a much easier step. In this jar I have some lemons and some oranges and I believe some pear. Any of those will do good, but I really like to add some citrus to mine. You don't have to be precise with your measurements. I'm just going to put in some roughly sliced oranges. You could even just put a whole half in, it doesn't matter. Just so long as you're exposing the juice and you have the rinds in there for the flavor. That'll be just fine. I'm also going to add some cranberries to mine. There's not a lot of measurement in simmer pots. Maybe a quarter to a half a bag, something like that. I think I'm going to add one more orange too. Next thing I'm going to use is some whole cloves, and I'm just going to sprinkle probably a teaspoon or so of those in there. Those are going to smell so good. And then I actually like to add a few whole allspice too if you have it. If you don't have the whole version of these spices, you can definitely use ground. And the last thing that I'm going to use is some whole cinnamon sticks. I actually got a really good deal on these at Sam's Club. I think it was $5 for this whole container, which is pretty good. And I'm going to use about 2 of these cinnamon sticks. And then one thing I almost forgot is some vanilla. Now, I make my own homemade vanilla, but I don't want to waste good homemade vanilla on something that we're not going to eat. So I like to buy some cheapy vanilla that I don't care if it gets wasted. So I'm going to use this dollar store vanilla in mine. This not only looks beautiful, but it also is going to make your house smell like Christmas. There are a lot of things that I like to add that I don't have in here today. I love adding rosemary to my simmer pots, especially if you have some fresh. You can just put a few sprigs of rosemary in your pot. Some star anise is also good in there. You could use a lot of your warming spices. So we have several of those here. We've got our cloves and our cinnamon and our allspice. You could also use like cardamom, anything like that that's very warming. You could use lemons. Really, the sky's the limit. I've done apples. All kinds of different fruits will give you really, really nice simmer pot. Now, I'm going to turn my stove on to low. I'm going to leave this uncovered, and I'm just going to let this sit and perfume our house. As the water level dips down, I'll go through and add some more. I'm going to make sure everything's pressed down under the water here real quick, and then I'm just going to walk off and start doing some of my Christmas baking. Another way to do simmer pots is to do the exact same steps here, but to put all of this in the Instant Pot and turn it on slow cook and low. I have done that several times, and I actually prefer that method because you don't run out of water as much, and you also can have your stove free. So typically I actually do this in the Instant Pot, but today I thought I would go ahead and do this on the stovetop. The first room I'm going to decorate is the dining room, and as well as a little bit of the kitchen. In this room I have buffalo check curtains, so I've made that my theme. This tree is just a themed tree. Most of our sentimental ornaments are saved for our tree in the living room, and that's the one that we decorate together as a family. My mom made this little canvas for us from a winter scene she found on a printed napkin. She does all kinds of crafting, and one of those types of crafting is called napkinizing. I'd never heard of this until she told me about it, but this is completely from a napkin, and then she matched the ribbon to our buffalo check decor, and I absolutely love it. My Nana always had a really big Christmas cactus that bloomed, and so I like having one as well, and I did get a start from my aunt from her big Christmas cactus, so hopefully next year I'll have one of her Christmas cactus babies blooming as well. We hosted our first gathering already at the beginning of the month, so you can see a few shots of the table full of food and ready for guests. For our centerpieces, I stuck a few pieces of some greenery down in my jars and topped with fresh cranberries that would float and support our tea candles. This video is taken a few days after our event, so the water needs to be cleaned out, but I really loved how this turned out. Next up is this cast iron rack that hangs in our kitchen. The wood from this is actually barn wood that came from my grandparents' dairy farm. So this is a very sentimental piece that my dad made for me, and I love decorating it. This year I tried to incorporate some items I normally have on my shelves throughout the year, so that way when it's time to pack away for the season, I don't have quite as much to put away. So I incorporated this into my Christmas decor by adding some fresh greenery and holly berries and some faux popcorn and cranberry garland, and just kind of snaked that throughout to continue the Christmas theme, but without adding a lot of cleanup. This jar of hot cocoa mix is actually from the hot cocoa bar that Andrew and I had at our wedding 6 years ago. So each year I set it out in a decorative jar as a sentimental decor item. on this day, I'm also doing a bit of housekeeping as well. So I'm mailing Christmas cards, I'm baking bread, regular everyday things that kind of seem mundane, but I think that there is a sense of coziness and joy that can be found in even the little things that serve my family's needs. Just got this sourdough out of the fridge, getting ready to bake some bread. I have shown this kitchen mat several times, and I do that because I absolutely love it. It's made kitchen cleanup so much easier for me, and every time I don't use this, I kick myself later when I have to scrub my countertops because I have dough or flour or whatever on it. I love using this for anything that's going to have a floury mess because I can just roll this up and I can go dump everything out in the trash can or the sink, and then this whole thing goes in the dishwasher. So you can fold this mat over a couple of little prongs in the bottom of your dishwasher and it'll come out good as new. So I mention this a lot, but I truly do love it a lot. So this sourdough is a little overproofed, but we're gonna save it. So overproof just means this sat for too long, and it got so big that it exhausted the lactobacillus and other bacteria that is found in true sourdough. True sourdough does not have any kind of leavening agent that's synthetically added. It doesn't have baker's yeast, or if you're using just a long fermented sourdough recipe, it's not even going to have baking powder, baking soda in it. There are discard recipes that do have those added leavening agents because they're using either inactive sourdough or they're not going to have a long rise time. So those are recipes that might use sourdough starter, but they're not true sourdough bread recipes. So if you're looking at the health benefits, you definitely want a long fermented loaf. So I'm going to show you how I plan to kind of revive this dough. First thing I'm going to do is sprinkle just a little bit of flour just so it's workable. And then I'm going to help build some tension in this loaf. Get the spring back. So to build tension, I'm kind of grabbing the dough like this and I'm pulling it towards me. And while I do this, you can see the dough kind of stretch and help the gluten kind of build back up and build that tension. Now, what I'm going to do, because this is overproofed, it should not be this little and flat. This dough was up to the top of this bowl. It's pretty good size dough bowl. So you can see how much it's fallen. At this point, this is not a wash. It's still healthy. It still has all the benefits of long fermentation, but it needs help keeping its shape, and it's going to need help rising just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is continue to build a little bit more tension in this, and then I'm actually just going to bake this in a loaf pan, and that will help give it the support that it needs to rise. And this will just be sandwich bread. So I've got my bread pan. I'm just going to grease that really good, and I'm going to get this ready to go in. I don't want to add a ton of flour because the whole point of a long fermented recipe is that the natural yeast and bacteria that makes up a sourdough starter has eaten through the flour and the water mixture that you gave it. So it kind of defeats the purpose to add a ton of flour here if my whole goal is digestibility. Alright, I've got that in kind of a loaf shape. So now it's in my loaf pan, and I will bake it just like this. I do need to still score it, just like a normal sourdough loaf. You can score this any way you want to. You can use a sharp knife, or like I'm using, this is called a bread lame. So this blade is like paper thin almost, but it is crazy sharp. So you can use this to make cuts in your bread. And so people really like to get decorative with these, and it's all kinds of fun to do that. But the goal is actually to allow the steam to escape in your loaf. When you are baking this, the steam has to go somewhere. And if you don't make a cut, it will find a way out, and it's usually the ugliest possible route. So people like to cut theirs. And where this is overproofed, this is not cutting the best, but I'm gonna do like a little Christmas tree design is my goal. If your bread is properly proofed and it's not past its prime, it's a little easier to do this, but better than no bread. Alright, I don't know how well that's going to show, but kind of have little Christmas tree indentations there. Make a little sourdough loaf fitting for today. Alright, it's ready to go in the oven. The next room that I'm decorating is our living room. This is the heart of our home. I always like to go with a more old-fashioned Christmas theme in our living room. I just feel like it suits our house. So I like to include things like oil lamps, red ticking stripe, natural elements like dried oranges, homemade ornaments, handmade pillows, and lots of family photos in this room. This is one of the special decorations that I have. My mom made this for me. This is actually all out of napkins that she napkinized on this board. I kind of told her I wanted a vintage Santa and then just some decor to set up on my mantle. I absolutely love him. I look forward to setting him out every year. One of the ornaments my mom made was featured at the very beginning of this video, and it's a picture of my granny and papa's 100-year-old farmhouse. Just like us, they lived in a little white farmhouse, and they hosted one of our Christmas gatherings. My granny always went all out with red tablecloths and her vintage milk glass tableware, and it was always just beautiful. Simple, inexpensive, but very, very pretty, and it was a display of her love for her family. That house holds a lot of special memories for me and my family, and I love that I get to have just a little bit of that house on my tree to remind me of those special times. All in all, I don't think it's the decorations or the theme that really matters. It's the cozy feeling you feel when you walk into a home that's been well loved and prepared to serve as a safe haven for those who come into it. It's the cheerful memories we make with those we love, not just on one special day, but throughout the holiday season. It's about reflecting on the many blessings we've been blessed with and giving praise to the one from whom all blessings flow. I hope you've enjoyed hanging out with me today and feel inspired to create that cozy, joyful feeling in your home. For more from scratch cooking, gardening, and keeping a cozy home, I hope you'll consider subscribing to our channel and liking this video. I'd love to know what you're doing to make your home feel cozy this Christmas season, so leave us a comment and let us know. Until next time, bye friends.